Hello everyone, back again for another video, and this is a special kind of video. And well, I say this because technically I'm filming this before, well, the day, tomorrow. This video is gonna be for tomorrow, but this is mostly it's actually a top 10 video about one of my favorite franchises, and also on one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite characters of all time. Right next to what I'm wearing right now. Well, actually, he's probably number one. Is I'm gonna be talking about a top 10 video on Godzilla himself, because Godzilla Day, well, when I release this video, would technically be that day, and I decided because I looked at Big Jack Films' video on his top 10 Godzilla movies, and also got inspired a little bit on one of my friends of mine did a video on his top 10 franchises. And I decided, you know what? Maybe I should do a top 10 video. And I decided that maybe my first top 10 video would be my favorite Godzilla movies. So, I wanted to mostly give my reasons on why I like these movies, and also why I choose these in the top 10. So, let's get started. Number 10, I put Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, aka GMK. And one of the reasons I actually put this on number 10 is not on my number 3 list, is that mostly I do enjoy it, and I really like the fantasy aspects they give to it, and most supernatural origin of Godzilla himself. But it's still, for me, feels flat with most of their human characters that I wish that, I got a little more development on. But that's personal in my opinion, but it won't really matter when I get to like the higher list. But overall, it doesn't mean if I'm put on in 10 doesn't mean it's a bad movie at all. I still really enjoy GMK. And another thing I feel is underrated about this movie, its soundtrack is actually really effing good. It's actually pretty good. I personally love its soundtrack. And also love the Godzilla design. He is threatening. He is scary. Like, he is a scary looking Godzilla, and I really like that design. But another thing I also do not like about it is, well, the kaiju they choose. I wish they did what originally was supposed to be intended. Is Anguirus and Baragon is in the movie still, but who really cares, because he's not really in it that much. He gets disrespected. Because it just wouldn't make sense to me. And King Ghidorah being a good guy still feels really weird to me. It's not the worst idea, but it still doesn't feel right. Anyway, let's go on number 9. I have chosen for number 9 is Godzilla versus King Ghidorah from, I think, 1994. I think. And I chose this one, and I know it's very controversial because of what, they say the future of like Japan is. I won't go into it. But I personally chose this movie because it's actually my first Godzilla movie I've ever watched. And I give this movie that it really made me love Godzilla. The first thing I saw of it was, well, the 1998 one, but I didn't really see the movie. I saw like a clip of it, but and then I saw Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and then it got me into watching all the other ones. So that's why I appreciate it. Its storyline is basically Terminator, because I know the Heisei movies, some of the movies they kind of copy ideas of movies around that time, because I think they wanted to market their movies saying like they want to get to the appeal of what was out. So they kind of mix like Back to the Future or Terminator, and it works in some ways it doesn't, some way it does. And I also love the Mecha King Ghidorah in the end. I thought that was so cool. But yeah, that's really what I could say about a movie. It's not the greatest. I don't know. There's something about it that I think I just like about it, but also I like But I like the King Ghidorah design a lot. I think it's a really cool looking King Ghidorah. Even if the Gorgats, I don't remember their names, are super weird. And I think that idea of like King Ghidorah being that still just doesn't seem right. But still, it's an enjoyable movie. That's why I put it on number 9, also because personal preference. Number 8, Godzilla 2014. Okay, so Godzilla 2014, I saw in the theater when it came out, and I loved this movie, and I still do. That's why I put in number 8. But like I said, like I'm gonna say right now, it does get overshadowed. But I do not, because I remember not liking the part where Godzilla is not in the movie as much, but I got used to it because I saw the other Godzilla movies, and he's actually 2014. He's actually in a lot more than the other Godzilla movies, because they show more of the human characters than Godzilla himself. But I understand some people's complaints, but I think it's kind of a dumb thing to say. And Bryan Cranston getting killed off, I hate that, but I still wish he survived. But I want to say also about Godzilla 2014. Well, one, it helped Godzilla a lot. If you can dislike the movie all you want, but you've got to agree that it gave Godzilla a big comeback into what he is now, because Godzilla's not had a movie since I think 10 years. I think 10 years or around that length, because I remember the last Godzilla movie was Final Wars, and that was a long ago. I don't remember the exact time, but I assume it was, I want to say 10 years. Maybe it's more than that, but I don't remember. But I remember really liking the movie. I like the Mutos a lot. I think it's cool they finally did original monster or kaiju, whatever you want to call it. I like most of the action scenes in the movie. I think one of the coolest scenes, and also I say is for best MonsterVerse moments, is when Godzilla uses atomic breath for the first time, because that was still I was wondering why they didn't show his atomic breath, and well, it was a big surprise, and I still love that scene. It still gets me hyped up every single time I see it. So, and and also I just like how dark it is. It's kind of like the best parts of the original Godzilla. Also a little bit of the kaiju fights from the goofier movies, but a lot more serious. So that's what I like about it, and I also love the Godzilla design, and they do improve it in the 2 later movies that I'll get into. But overall, I love Godzilla 2014, and it always will be the movie I think that helped Godzilla a lot. Number 7, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Okay, so one of the reasons I put that higher than 2014 is, one, I like that they kind of crossed over to all the other characters they had, Rodan, Mothra, and Godzilla, because they were separate movies. So they kind of did it before the MCU. Yeah, take that, Marvel. But also that they kind of redeemed Godzilla in this movie. This is his full-on redemption, because in Godzilla Raids Again, he wasn't a good guy. King Kong vs. Godzilla, he was still not a good guy. He was a villain. And this movie, I think, also made him a lot more of a character than just a big monster, like a symbol, because he wasn't like a full-on superhero in this movie, like the Lair Show movies did, and I still enjoy the Lair Show movies, but Godzilla being a full-on basically superhero, I'm not a biggest fan of that. I think that's still a little weird. I think that this works more well with Gamera, in my personal opinion. But overall, I love Ghidorah 3-Headed Monster, and yeah, it might not be a full-on Godzilla movie, but he's in it. He's basically one of the main focus. And also, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster it's King Ghidorah. King Ghidorah is awesome. He's Godzilla's Joker, basically. Or Spider-Man's Green Goblin or whatever. That's what I'm trying to say here. And King Ghidorah his introduction is so cool in this movie. And that's one of the reasons I put it up there. Okay, number 6, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. I don't know why they call it that, but whatever. I put this movie on number 6 because, well, one, it's probably the Heisei movie I watched the most. Just because of its story. I like what they did with Godzilla Jr. I think what they did with him and Rodan, I think was pretty interesting, and I like that his relationship with what was her name? The female character, I forgot her name, but I like the relationship they had. I think that was a really nice and cool way of doing it. Because I'm actually gonna find her because I cannot remember her name, but I also like the Mechagodzilla in this movie. Like, he is so freaking cool. Oh my god, I'm trying to find it. Where's the name? Oh, Azia Gojo. I think that's her name. I think that's her name in the movie. That's what it says, but I think that's what it is. Anyway, I want to, because I just like that part a lot. It kind of reminded me of what was that movie? It was like a movie. It kind of reminded me a little bit of How to Train Your Dragon, a little bit, but also like most of those movies with those kind of animal characters, because also one, they had to make it sad in the end, because they had to be separated, except and we don't even see that character again. I don't know why. I mean, that's ridiculous, but whatever. But mostly also like the Mechagodzilla they have in this movie. It reminds me of Super Robots a lot, because I love Get a Robo, and it even has like chest thing, and it made me freak out a lot. And I like I just like the fights with Godzilla, because also Godzilla just whoops Mechagodzilla's ass in like twice in the movie. Mechagodzilla was starting to win. Well, he kind of did in like the beginning of the final fight, but then Rodan sacrificed himself, And I like that scene also. I like Rodan doing that. Except that's the only thing I'll give a little criticism on this movie is Rodan was he was kind of lackluster. He didn't really do as much. The only thing he really did was fight Godzilla for a little bit. Then Rodan, I think, gave Godzilla energy. That's what I understood, or like his life force, And I think that's cool. And it kind of made Godzilla just destroy Mechagodzilla. It kind of went Super Saiyan for a little bit there. But yeah, I just like the them expanding also like the Godzilla species a lot. I think that's pretty interesting, and how they did it. And that's what I can say about Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. Except one more thing. I still wish they did the poster design of Mechagodzilla. That design still would have been amazing to do, but I guess Suitmation's hard. I guess they couldn't do it, but oh well. Anyway, number 5. I know this is probably a movie that a lot of people put on their list. Godzilla vs. Destroyer. Okay. Godzilla vs. Destroyer is one of the coolest Godzilla finales I've seen. Because the Showa movies, they didn't really have a good finale. You can say the Showa Monsters is kind of that, but it's not the final movie of that era. And I also like that Godzilla Destroyer is linked to the original Godzilla, and also just looks sick. He looks like the devil, and I love that. And Kaiju Noir described him best. He's like the Grim Reaper, also trying to basically just bring the death to Godzilla. And that's just sick. He just looks so cool. And I know that he's also, in general, he's a fan favorite. And he's but he's also very similar to some other kaiju Hedorah, with turning into having different forms and consuming radiation. But I still overall, even with that, Destroyer is just so memorable for me because of how strong he was and was able to compete with Godzilla, almost killing him, and killing his son. No other kaiju did that to Godzilla that I can remember. But like also like really like getting Godzilla like doing something really personal to him, you know? And I think that makes Destroyer such a good villain. And what made the movie so good is also that death scene with Godzilla. Oh my god, it made me cry when I saw that, but also was so well done because the music they choose is so good, and it's kind of meta when you think about it because this is the last movie Akira Ikefube did the soundtrack to for a Godzilla movie, so it's kind of also the end of his that era of Godzilla like in general, and you can argue that the CG didn't look good in that scene, but I think they did it well. And it was pretty horrific. Also, like you see the skin and like melting and like the skeleton. It was like I'm like oh, but it was still like a really good scene. I still think it's a scene that needs to be mentioned a lot more often than what Godzilla fans really what I mean. And also, Burning Godzilla is just one of the coolest things. Burning Godzilla is probably one of my favorite Godzilla designs that I've seen. It's actually that idea. It's not, they don't call it Burning Godzilla and like some other stuff, but it's in the movie I'm going to mention later, and it's also in the anime trilogy. Kind of. It's not exactly it, but it's basically Burning Godzilla. So that's how memorable that Godzilla vs. Destroyer was. It was that good. Okay. Number 4, Godzilla 1984. Okay, so I would say that I'm not talking about the American version. Get that crap out of here. We don't want to be involved with that. I'm talking about the Japanese one, the original movie. The Godzilla 1984, I feel like, has one of the coolest looking Godzillas, and like I said, I think it also for me. It was a good start for the Heisei trilogy. Not trilogy, the saga, basically. But also was dark. Felt like a worthy sequel to the original. The music was great. The acting, the ending was so dark, but so well done, because they don't betray Godzilla being full on evil. Because it's kind of sad when he goes in the volcano, because it's he was kind of just an animal, he wasn't he didn't really deserve that. So, but I love that. Americans had to change that. So, but like I said, we won't go into that. But I still enjoy Godzilla 1984 a lot. The effects are great, I still believe even with the Heisei moves, and yes, the suit mation, they can move really slow. They barely move because how heavy they are. But even with that, I think it still holds up. And just also brought Godzilla back, He brought him back from the lackluster Showa movies, So, but that's really what I can say. And any of you who have not seen Godzilla 1984 or most of the Heisei movies, watch these movies because they're probably one of the best things from Godzilla. And most Godzilla fans will probably agree. Now, let's go into number 3. This might be a little subjective and a little, controversial. Godzilla vs. Kong is a number 3 for me. And I know it's not the greatest movie, but overall, I love what they were doing, and I think there were some parts of the story that people kind of glossed over. And yeah, it has plot holes. Yeah, it does. But it's a fun movie. It's Godzilla versus Kong. Who does not want to see that? It's the movie the monsters were that was really building up to. And goddamn, Mechagodzilla's in the movie. Even if that was spoiled in a toy leak for most people. I saw it, and I was still, but whatever. Even with that, it didn't spoil my enjoyment seeing him. But I really believe that Godzilla vs. Kong has one of the best action scenes out of all of Godzilla movies. not including the one I'm gonna get to. But one, they do Kong so well, I feel. Um, he does sign language though. I still think that also made him more of a character because King Kong's an icon, and I'll definitely do a video, a top 10, possibly doing another top 10 video on King Kong, if when I get to his anniversary. Maybe I might just make this a routine, but I overall like Godzilla's Kong because also it really does the best parts, like basically focusing on Godzilla and Kong a little bit more, but still, it still does it well, I feel. And also, the another thing about it that makes it so cool is that it's kind of a 90s animated cartoon, kind of, when you think about it. It's very goofy, but it still feels like I can take it somewhat seriously, you know? And also like the idea of them showing the Hollow Earth. I like that idea a lot. I think it looks really cool. And I hope we explore more in the next movie. But also Kong, like I said, I want to go a little bit on Kong in this movie. He's like I like that they kind of made him a little bit of a veteran in this movie, but he also feels like he's not in his own world. He feels like, because when you see his reactions, he kind of looks like that. He feels like he's out of place, and I like that idea of Kong doing that because Godzilla, he's used to all this, but Kong, he's only been in an island. He's been isolated from everyone. And I like them showing their reactions, but also with the fight scenes. Godzilla and Kong, if you look closely with most of the actions, they both fight very differently. They don't fight also like people. That was actually one of my main problems I had with, for example, Pacific Rim Uprising. They didn't really make the kaiju or Jaegers. They didn't really make them feel like they were, Jaegers or kaiju. They just made them feel like I was watching people in suits. And that can be fun. It can look cool in some situations, but in that, it didn't. It didn't work, And Godzilla's Kong, I feel, really showed how Godzilla and Kong fight differently. And I really enjoyed that. Now, in the Mechagodzilla fight, it's one of the coolest things. Now, let's go into number 2. And that is, it's pretty obvious what it might be. Shin Godzilla. Shin Godzilla's in number 2. I would have put in number 1 if it wasn't for the movie I'm going to get into that came out in 2019. All you Godzilla fans probably know what I'm talking about. Shin Godzilla is one. It just has the best story. It's very I don't know how to describe it, because I remember seeing it in the theater when it came out, and it was an amazing experience. That was probably Shin Godzilla for me when I saw it in the theater was probably one of my favorite movie experiences I've done, not including Endgame or No Way Home or something like that. Shin Godzilla, I like the idea of Godzilla. I like how they did him, being he was an amphibian creature that feed on nuclear radiation, but also slowly, when he evolves, becomes more basically a god, stronger, gets stronger, gets more his traditional self, but also is intelligent. If you also watch the ending, because he's pretty horrific. But also, and another thing I really don't understand about what people do with Shin Godzilla, they try to make him out to be his own separate creature, and I do not like that when people do that. I think that's really annoying, and it kind of frustrates me, because it's Godzilla, guys. Stop acting like he's hetero or something. I don't like it when people do that, because but that's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to be negative here. But Shin Godzilla, I like the characters in the movie, but because also it feels like Shin Godzilla to me feels like the most realistic Godzilla movie, and that's a weird thing to say because no real Godzilla movie is realistic. And what happens in Shin Godzilla, there's a lot of crazy stuff, but Shin Godzilla, I feel, really showed, I think, how people would react to Godzilla, because in the beginning of the movie, they didn't know what he was. They couldn't even plan everything, and he just attacked, and and there's a reason because you would argue that, oh, why did the military prepare? But it's like they haven't. They couldn't because they never seen anything like this before. And I would not be surprised if this is how our government would react also. To Godzilla. And but yeah, I just liked how realistic it was of like how like also the characters acted. And yeah, it could be slow in some parts, but even with that, I still enjoyed it overall. And also kind of brings back somewhat the message of the original Godzilla, nuclear power. But also the one of the things I'm also gonna bring up about Shin Godzilla is music. Its music is so goddamn good. Oh my god. And it kind of has some symbolism in the music. Like, if you know Who Will Know, the song, it kind of saying that Godzilla doesn't want to die, or he wants to he has to keep moving forward, and he wants to be remembered. And I think that's pretty interesting, And there's also some theories that maybe he's connected to Goramaki in this movie, and I've always theorized about this with my friends. Because also I like that they don't really fully tell you how Godzilla was created. They just tell you the parts that that would make sense, but there's probably more to it than we realize. And also that tail thing is one of the creepiest, scariest moments in Godzilla I've seen. So, but overall, Shin Godzilla is a really great movie, and any of you who might not be a Godzilla fan, start with Shin Godzilla or the original. That's what my suggestion would be. But number one, most of you probably would know what this is. Godzilla King of the Monsters is in the number one spot for me. Oh my god. This movie was a complete love letter to all Godzilla, in my opinion. And I don't care what the reviews say. I do not care. They can say whatever they want about this movie. Because, like I said before with Godzilla's Kong, it's not the perfect movie. It's not, Godzilla came out, it's not the perfect movie. But there's no such thing as perfect movie. And Godzilla King of Monsters was still able, for me, to have really good characters. And yeah, it could be a little cringy with their jokes. It's very MCU-y, I would say. But the director, Michael Dougherty, clearly understood what Godzilla was to most people. And everything about this movie, every single time that I watch this movie, I get so excited and so hyped when I see Godzilla or King Ghidorah or many of the popular Toho kaiju that are in this movie. Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Godzilla. The soundtrack. Oh my god! Bear Mercury, I don't know how to say his last name, did such a good job with this score because he added the original Godzilla theme. He even added the Mothra theme, and I was not that big a fan of the Mothra theme. But in this movie, he made me love it. It was incredible, And also the fight scenes, oh my god, they're so crazy, But also I like that they really expanded the lore of the MonsterVerse a lot more, and I really enjoyed that, And I appreciate Godzilla King of Monsters doing that. And to me, I know there's I said also before, Godzilla King of Monsters kind of to me, I want to say it's probably the best love letter for Godzilla. Shin Godzilla is the more serious one. Godzilla King of Monsters is the one that also might, a lot of people who might like the Showa might like this movie. But Godzilla King of Monsters, I feel, is for love letter because it's also just Godzilla. He looks more like the original. Because with mostly the spikes, and they improved his design a little bit more. They fixed his feet. His head's a little bit smaller, but it doesn't really bother me. And also, King Ghidorah, I like his origin a lot. They kind of mixed GMK with the original. Because I was a little worried they weren't going to make him an alien. But they did. So, and that gives a lot more potential what the monsters could also add. And also, King Ghidorah's design is... It's perfect. It's perfect. The only thing that I wish they add was the golden hair that the original King Ghidorah had. That was the only thing they were missing. But everything else was great. King Ghidorah is humongous, and I love how big he is. It makes him look so menacing, and I like he kind of reminds me of also, and I mean this it's a very small, but it's not a bad thing. He kind of reminds me of Smog a little bit, mostly the face, but also sometimes he walks on four legs. It kind of reminds me of Smog, but not that much. But I like how menacing King Ghidorah is and like how threatening he is. And Mothra, I also like how they did in this movie because they make her a full-on ally with Godzilla, because they kind of been like, oh, we'll team up for rare occurrences in most of the Godzilla movies. But I like in this one they make them flat out allies. I think that's pretty cool. Except it had to bring in the shipping again, and I get really annoyed by it. So, but whatever. And Rodan, that's the only thing I'm really a little criticism on. Rodan, they kind of did dirty in this movie. It was kind of just there. He kind of was just everyone's pet. He was kind of the Starscream of this movie. He felt very Starscream, where he's like, oh, he's just gonna follow anyone because he's scared. And I don't really like that. I think that's a little kind of disheartening or just kind of disrespectful to Rodan, because I know he's not like that. He's kind of a loner, and I wish they did that like what Michael Doris says he was. So, but who knows? Maybe in the next movie he'll be more like that. Because I'm kind of hoping he is. Because I don't want him to just be a lackey to Godzilla. I want him to be more of a, an impact. But overall, Godzilla King of Monsters is great. And I think most Godzilla fans would probably agree. And that's my top 10 Godzilla movies. And this is also opinionated. So nothing really, this is not really fact. This is not fact. This is just my opinion. But yeah, like I said, this is probably my favorite movies, and that's really all I need to say on this video. And I hope all you guys have a good Godzilla day, and do something fun for his birthday, because I'm gonna see a Godzilla movie in the theater on Godzilla Day. I'm excited to do that. It's Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Maybe we'll get also some Gigabash stuff with Godzilla. It's possible. Gomorrah Island keeps on teasing that. So, overall, see you guys next time. Bye-bye.